Hello, my name is. I am from the United States. At the current time, I am 33 years old, and today the date is May 3rd, 2023. The following message is to set the record straight to the physical world, as well as explain the horrors that have taken place in my life for the past 5 years. It has been crafted with safety in mind, but without the knowledge I truly need to protect people, I can only ensure this to a degree. I originally wrote this message in November of 2017, and I did not have a full grasp of the situation at the time, and still to this day, I do not really know the reality of the situation. Out of fear of death and torture, and in response to what I had been experiencing, I decided against sharing this message with the world. Meanwhile, I have been tortured on and off for the last 5 years with no mercy. I have never wanted to destroy the balance, and I have only wanted to set things right in both the spiritual and physical world, and contribute to helping us all unite and evolve together. Over time, my body has been slowly poisoned and targeted in an organized manner to make it appear as if I were suffering from illnesses created by natural causes. I have received a long list of threats that included killing and murdering me, kidnapping and physically torturing me in various ways, putting me into a coma caused by either an accident or being poisoned over time, framing me by putting a bomb, gun, or other illegal materials in my home or car, framing me for crimes I did not commit, destroying my character and reputation to the public, keeping me from growing to any acclaim or success in the real world, setting fire to my house while I was sleeping, creating smear campaigns, hacking my personal devices, and lastly, taunts of satanic and ritualistic behavior. I can say that more than a few things that I have been threatened with have actually occurred in my life. All of what I have mentioned above was executed with the use of advanced psychological warfare and manipulation, electromagnetic technologies, specifically targeted sound waves and frequencies, and various military-grade weapons. And sadly, with all of this, they have still also used physical people in the real world for behavioral countermeasures as well as another method of torture. I do not know how many people are involved, and I do not know if the government has any involvement, but I do know that with the effort being put forth to target and kill me, the operation behind this must be fairly big in size. Physically, I have endured a long list of severe symptoms and medical issues. This list includes severe shortness of breath and breathing issues, severe palpitations and heart issues, severe damage to my stomach, poor blood circulation, leg and vocal edema, severe swelling of both my feet and ankles, testosterone issues, bruised ribs and sides, papilloma of the tongue, autoimmune diseases, multiple skin rashes, multiple lumps of tissue on my breast, damage to my nervous system and equilibrium, liver issues, throat issues, the loss of ability to speak multiple times for months, and long-term damage to my vocal cords, the loss of hearing in my ears for 4 months, creating partial damage to the tissue in my ear, and lastly, damage to my short-term memory. I have coughed up blood more times than I can count. I have had my tongue completely turn white and harden. I have experienced permanent hair loss on many areas of my body which occurred over just a few days' time. I have lost a great deal of my balance and coordination. I suffer from numbness in various parts of my body almost daily. I have lost my ability to go to the bathroom properly. I have lost my ability to process and control a large portion of my thoughts. To help better understand from my perspective, I will provide a little background on my life. I grew up in the suburbs and lived a normal and happy life. At about the age of 15-16, I began experiencing immense depression that was connected to the fact that I did not understand why anyone would work for their whole life when there seemed like a million better options for how people could and should be living their lives. In addition to this, I was left even more distraught by the fact that it seemed as though no one felt the same way, and that they were all just willingly taking part in a simulated prison. I also grappled with having extreme anxieties about death, and I felt I would never have enough time to do all the things I wanted, and not just make a dent in the world, but truly change it. At this time in my life, I was also in a mutually abusive relationship in which I was the main aggressor. Slowly over the course of 2 years, I became a controlling, manipulative, and vicious monster that was seeking only to hurt and get even with the girl I loved more than anything in the world. At the end of the relationship, I ended up striking her multiple times and giving her a concussion. I have beaten myself up severely over this for the course of my life on and off, hoping it would somehow make up for what I did, and though I would have thoughts like helping at a women's shelter or homeless shelter, I did not once follow through with it because of my misery. At about 21 or so, I became obsessed with the idea of being a Christ-minded figure or some sort of leader that could set this world free. Although I have begun this transformation and started to follow in the path of light, I can tell you these voices in my head have only gotten louder and louder over time. Around this time, I moved to the city for about 5 years. By the end of my 23rd year on this earth, I officially gave up on life. With the exceptions of the bands I was in or the few people I spoke to every 2 to 3 weeks, I did not speak to anyone, and I did not even leave my parents' home unless I needed to run out for essential items to live. I am now 33, and due to my targeting, my progress in the physical world is still about the same, but my spirit has grown immensely, and I am beginning to feel purpose and satisfaction more and more every day. The events I am about to discuss took place in August of 2017, where within the first 3 days of my torture, I was reduced to a fear-driven zombie state and convinced everyone was trying to kill me. In addition to various information about war violence taking place in the United States, I was also given 6 different dates where I was told certain things would happen, ending with the final date being on January 27, 2018. I honestly do not remember any of the other dates because of the stress that I was under, but alongside this information, I was told I would be dead before the last date, and I was also told I would not even make it to my 28th birthday, which would have been January 9th, 2018. So for the following, I will do my best to explain as best I can, but as I have stated, I do not have all the information, and I can only tell you what I have been a witness to from my own perspective. When this all began, I was simply just looking at videos on social media and other websites while relaxing towards the end of the day. I then came across an article about a show that had been recently canceled on Adult Swim entitled $1 Million Extreme for using subliminal messages which included swastikas in their show. The topic of subliminal messages is what originally caught my attention, and so I decided to actually watch the show and try and see if I could make any sense of it. I watched the entirety of the show and did not really think much of it except it was the typical type of comedy I would usually see on many other Adult Swim shows. But I literally did not understand what the actual jokes were for 80% of the show, and the sheer weirdness of the show kept me wondering. Since I didn't really get much of a grasp on what was going on or who the main creator was, I began to research them and then found various video channels and websites online, as well as content of disgusting acts and pranks that the creator had actually taken part in or even started himself. The main creator, Sam Hyde, had many YouTube channels, some which included his castmates from $1 Million Extreme, Charles Carroll and Nick Rochford, and many others he produced himself. All of the names for these YouTube channels were nonsensical, depraved edgy humor, or what appeared to be names just picked at random for no reason. One of the channel's videos centered around pizza and with children, while laughing hysterically in the camera that was dated from 2014, which was a great deal before the much discussed Pizzagate conspiracy theory even occurred. I never personally believed in this theory at all, but after seeing this, I did think this occurrence was extremely strange at the least, and I felt uneasy as I continued watching these assorted types of videos and sketches. Examples of this include a video and meme he created entitled Sam Hyde Accidentally Rams Car into Crowd at Charlottesville Protest, and a book Hyde wrote that is for purchase entitled How to Bomb the U.S. Government, the official Primo Strategy Guide to the Collapse of Western Civilization. Alongside this content, I found that there had been many instances in which Sam Hyde had been referenced and memed after mass shootings were to occur. On at least one occasion, he and his fans even got a news station to cover a story with him as the mass shooter. When these mass shootings do occur, content of Sam Hyde's has circulated on certain areas of the internet in the form of a meme, photo, or video with the words, "He can't keep getting away with it," while holding an assault rifle. The joke being that somehow Hyde is linked to all these tragedies and no one can catch or stop him. If you examine and make connections surrounding this individual, you will begin to see that there really is an alternative meaning to what he is doing with his content, and that there is maybe a subliminal context to the words he is using in his content when he says certain things like, "He can't keep getting away with it." And based on my own personal experience with him, I can say I know there is a sinister connection and link between Sam Hyde and all these horrible events. So as I continued my research, I then came across another additional YouTube channel which was entitled Hyde Wars. Like the other content and channels, it made no sense, but this content was centered around recruiting people for a hidden war, while at the same time included edits of him in realistic feeling police chases and many other bizarre antics. It was around this exact moment when Sam Hyde started referring to specific moments and memories in my life and talking to me directly in the video. He then began telling me I was going to die before my next birthday, January 9th, 2018, and kept referring to an incident that had apparently taken place that day or the day before. The incident in which he was referring to is now known as a domestic terrorism attack that took place in Charlottesville, North Carolina, in which an individual by the name of James Alex Fields drove his car into a crowd of innocent protesters, injuring at least around 25 people and killing one individual named Heather Heyer. The night previous to this, there had also been a mass demonstration in which many far-right, as well as many regular everyday people, held lit tiki torches in protest of the removal of statues in the area, as well as the climate of the country. Up until this point, I had watched the whole Hyde Wars series, which spanned about 17 episodes at the time. This obviously sent me to a place of extreme fear and anxiety. Knowing what I know now, I can say that the Hyde Wars videos in their entirety were crafted with a sadistic motive in mind to put any unaware viewers through a dramatic and bizarre experience and also an adrenaline-fueled confusion. With my mind being successfully put into a sponge-like state willing to receive information, Sam Hyde used this opportunity to hack my computer and control it. And though it is obvious, I will state that if in real time an individual begins talking to you through a computer screen, it will have a significant impact on your perspective immediately, and you will feel a serious sensation of helplessness in which you cannot tell what is real and what is not. Though my mind knew what was happening, I was shocked to the point where I was then molded to believe anything. I do not know how it was possible for him to directly hack into YouTube's website in real time. I also do not know if he previously recorded these videos, if this was some type of deep fake technology, or if he also hacked and wrote code in which he could live stream himself through YouTube. I am 100% certain this occurred, and I know anyone who seeks the truth out on this issue will come to very much the same conclusion. People hearing this information for the first time need to understand, although he is playing a character, this character is based on his personality and his behavior, and he uses it to create a cover story for his actions in the real world. This character acts as a vehicle for Hyde to talk about and even boast of actions he has done in his actual life and frame it as a means of edgy and in-your-face humor with a realistic feel. And in response to this message, I can only predict that Sam Hyde and or his base will put out misinformation and smear campaigns characterizing my claims as conspiracy theories and mental health issues. I can assure you, my claims are all based in truth and facts, and I can assure you that anyone saying different is a liar or a coward. So from this moment onward, in a completely shell-shocked state, I began to search wherever the trail took me, and soon I ended up on sites such as Reddit, 4chan, Kiwi Farms, and various others that I do not remember. I have no real experience with forum sites, but I was aware of some of the things that could take place on them. On the day this occurred, I was looking at real-time responses to what had taken place during the day. Many were cheering at the atrocities that took place. As I got further down the rabbit hole, I began finding myself on more obscure nationalist and American pride forums. On these forums, they were discussing how they made this stupid kid go crazy and drive his car into a crowd of people. They said that they did this by using subliminal messages and making him think irrational and crazy things were occurring around him until he snapped. They were openly talking about this in the forums I ended up at, and I honestly did not know what to make of it. It was at this point that individuals in the forum I was currently in took notice of me and started all unanimously typing into the forum, "We have a spy," "We have an intruder," and other similar things. They were also mocking me, saying, "He's a rare one," "Uh-oh, this never happens," and lastly, "We're going to have to kill him now." They then began saying I was going to be their next victim and that I would be dead before my next birthday, just as Sam Hyde had said an hour or so prior. It was at this point I also realized I was not just hacked by one person, but an entire group of individuals. As I began losing my sanity, I could not help but to keep on looking for an answer or try to understand what was happening to me. I found myself on websites for shell companies that did not even exist, and sports websites where the sports statistics seemed to be coded in a very odd way. Once I really tried to break down what I was seeing, I figured out that they were using golf statistics and professional golfers as a cover for certain individuals who were at the Charlottesville rally during the day and the points they earned, while creating chaos and violence at the rally. Even weirder is when I looked at some of the comment sections on these sites, they were all discussing civil war, military coups all across the country, and even hopes of World War III. These comments were specific enough where they were all stating they knew they were going to die in the upcoming war and that they hoped their kids would be fine once they were gone. They even mentioned specifics about their families and their children's names. I also came across various sites that were discussing and human trafficking, which I do believe may have been partly based in truth, but the more important revelation that I had was that it also had a second alternative meaning, which was in order to discuss covert activities. I do now know for a fact that in addition to all the purposes they were using this information for, it was also used for the purposes of shocking and exasperating individuals to the point of literal delirium. I can say in hindsight now also, most of what I experienced and witnessed was designed specifically for someone like myself who would come across this information only to lose their mind. But this type of information is also circulating through the mainstream every day. So I can also state this information could very easily be coordinated by a larger group of individuals to play a role in something bigger that was and still is going on. And to make these matters even more disgusting and inhumane, my suspicion is that these individuals play a game in which they torture people to the point where they kill themselves and tally up points as they go along. My original thought was that this was just people online harassing me and trying to get a rise out of me in a very extreme way. But as I went out into the real physical world, I found out this was not the case, as people in certain places I went were actively talking about me and specifics about what had happened to me in the days prior. They were also speaking about the same specific details and problems in my life that were mentioned to me online. In my home, many items and objects were tampered with as well as altered, so I would notice and know that someone had been in my home. An example of one of these psychological tactics is when I came to find that overnight my pill bottles physically were switched out for new ones that were exact replicas, but the font print on the labels had been changed from the original bold print that I had previously had in my possession. On my computer, all of the screenshots I had taken of my computer desktop, probably totaling in about 50, were now all deleted, and websites I had bookmarked on my browser were no longer there. The only page that was still in my bookmarks literally changed in front of my eyes from a pride site to a patriotic pride site, and then that bookmark too disappeared and was deleted. In terms of my physical symptoms and conditions, I believe that this was done with electromagnetic technology, directed impulses of sound waves and frequencies, and various military-grade weapons. I am highly convinced that direct energy weapons were in use, which damage its target with highly focused energy without a solid projectile, and may include the use of lasers, microwaves, particle beams, or sound beams depending on the situation or desired result. Some other technologies that only exist to the public in the form of proven patents and rumors is the form of digital manipulation and torture, which is known as V2K, voice-to-skull technology, which sends thoughts straight into an individual's head through various processes, again dealing with electromagnetic fields and the use of directed impulses of sound waves and frequencies to put specific thoughts in both your conscious and subconscious thoughts to get a desired result. It finds and uses your unique brain mapping in order to manipulate your specific brain waves. Another example, remote neural monitoring, is said to actually capture the senses of an individual as they are feeling them, and to also monitor all brain activity and function that is taking place in real time. And with all this information and data at their discretion, they can build and make a narrative to fit whatever occurs in your life and your daily routine at any given time. In terms of advanced psychological warfare and torture, I was put through many tactics and techniques that's purpose was to make me lose my sanity and create an actual process of decay in my consciousness as well as my physical brain itself. Some of these techniques included neural linguistic programming, classical and operant conditioning, Pavlovian conditioning, gaslighting, subliminal messages, repeated learning and repetition, various drugs and stimuli, and forms of hypnosis. The idea is to always be planting seeds in the subconscious as to create a constant state of agitation and extreme anxiety. With the aid of these seeds, surveillance, and spyware systems on your device, they then can create a lexicon of language, culture, and perspective to match yours and slowly chip away at it piece by piece. There can also be a high usage of religious symbology and satanic messaging involved to create even more fear in the individual. When you are subjected to this type of treatment, there is no way that an individual cannot be affected by this to an extreme degree. Your mind over time can become constantly saturated with thoughts and stress, thus creating the early stages of psychosis or manic episodes, which could last weeks or even months. When this occurs, the mind then begins seeing signs and connections that are not there, and you even begin to lose your perception of reality, which acts as a trigger to set you off at the most mundane of things. My thought is that these technologies and weapons 100% originated within the government, the military, and the private sector. But I also believe that people in the know and who are involved in the seedy underbelly of this world can purchase these types of technologies and weapons if they know that they exist and know where to acquire them. Some may want to create harm to certain targets, while others may just harm innocent individuals and sadly even try to make profit from it. The CIA has even reported that they had believed some of these kinds of devices had been used on their agents in an attack, which was later coined as Havana Syndrome. Though the main symptoms seemed to be headaches and confusion, and the case/situation itself was slowly shrugged off, it occurred to me that the procedures and circumstances they were discussing were comparable to what I had been exposed to. So in closing, I will state there is a lot of evil in this world that is yet to be exposed, and there are unspeakable horrors that the average human being could not even fathom, let alone try to understand. And I will state this information will come out, and when it does, the very existence of these horrible truths will try to destroy your spirit. You must remember, if you possess light in your spirit, you will always be protected. And if you look towards the light, you will be able to overcome anything. We cannot turn away from this. And if we do, then our fate will reflect that. In the future, we will need to have strong leaders with integrity who will sacrifice in the name of what's right, no matter the cost. And that is exactly what I am trying to show you can be done with this message. Lastly, to anyone who is reading or listening to this and has been targeted, use meditation, breathing exercises, relaxing techniques such as slowly squeezing and relaxing your muscles, and always slow your thoughts down as much as you can. Love forever and stay strong.